Hey guys, so this is going to be more of an informal sort of vlog style video. I know I haven't done one of these in forever, but um I wanted to talk to you guys about something that I feel is kind of personal and um something I've been struggling with for a while now, and I just feel like I need to be able to express this. So I've been thinking about this because, as a lot of you may or may not know, um, I am a writer. That's what I do, that's what I love. And I think a lot of writing is sort of, um, getting into other people's heads, getting into your characters' heads, and finding out how they feel about one thing or another, and writing about that, writing about their feelings, writing about what they're going through, writing about their experiences. But I feel like a lot of times, as a real person, I don't really remember to do that very often. I'm not always the best at talking about or even writing about my own feelings or how I'm doing with things or what's going on in my life. I can't say I've never been a journaler. I do have times where I try to journal, but journaling for me is not the same. I feel like I have been known to do it. It can be very, very helpful, but it's not my favorite thing to do because it does feel, as does this, very vulnerable. And I've maybe mentioned it before, but vulnerability has never been my strongest suit. I think I've probably said that a few times on here. It's something that I've really wanted to work on. And I guess part of making this video is working on that. And so this is just kind of a me with no makeup, not well lit. I'm holding my own camera, so that's probably, if it's a little shaky, that's why. I apologize. Let me try and hold that better. Oh, nope, that's doing something. Don't do that. Okay. Hopefully that is better. But I've been dealing a lot lately with a lot of anxiety. And I'm trying to figure out why. It's one of those moments where it doesn't feel like I can pinpoint any root cause. And so my mother, who's always very, very helpful and who's always been very helpful to me, kind of suggested something to me that seems obvious, but also it could go either way. But it's a point of using my writing to kind of pinpoint and help me figure out what's wrong and why I feel some type of way. And I feel like for me, and I don't know, maybe if you guys are writers, you have this similar experience, but for me, writing allows me to kind of look inwards a lot more. And sometimes you can do that through a character. You can, sort of take on the role of a character and you feel very close to them and you feel very personally connected to them. A lot of times when I'm writing fan fiction, I feel like, Draco is very much me. I very much, for a lot of varying reasons, feel very personally connected to that character. And so ultimately that means that when I'm writing things, sometimes I'm writing what I'm going through or what I'm thinking through him. But it can be helpful to just sort of journal and say, okay, what are my thoughts? What am I going through? What is in my head? And so as I've mentioned before in, I think, another video, I like to keep 9x6 little journals or little notepads with me that I get from the dollar store. They are these wonderful babies, Jot 120 sheets, little 9x6 that I get from the dollar store. They are brilliant. Actually, these are 9.5x6, excuse me. They are brilliant. They fit in your purse. They go everywhere. I love them. And I just sat here and spent, I don't know, maybe the last 20-30 minutes just writing. Let me see if I can, this isn't going to let me turn this around, but let me see if I can just give you an idea of just the pages and pages, it's still going, of just different things that I've thinking about and that I've been feeling. And I'd like to share some highlights. Obviously, I feel like this could probably run into like a 20-30 minute video, and some of the things definitely repeat. But you can get an idea. This is, I don't even know how many pages this is, because this just keeps going, sis. It's probably 20 plus pages. Yeah, I think this, yeah, this right here is the last page. Oh, and that's just talking about how I wanted to make a video about this. So it's a good amount of writing. But basically, the point was, it was me going through finding, I think, about 8 or 9 things that I think I'm feeling particularly anxious about, or that make me anxious in any given context. And sort of going through those and saying, okay, why do you feel this way? What is that? What is going on there? What is the deeper root of that? And I think it's important to share that, because I think it's something that a lot of people feel. And I feel like if my story and my experience can maybe help someone, then it would be worth it for me to share sort of what I'm going through and what my thoughts are on all of this. And so my list is scared of failure, which is something I think we all kind of experience. I think it's that fear that, and it kind of is explained actually further down. It's the fear that I will have wasted my time in whatever I'm doing, and that I won't have accomplished something, you know, at the end of your life. And I think that this is a common fear, especially if you're someone who has any sort of dream or desire, or you've worked hard at something. I think sometimes for me, YouTube feels like a little bit of a failure because it's not getting the views that I think it should, and things that I've worked hard on kind of get ignored, or they've gotten a copyright strike, or, you know, whatever. And so I think sometimes it can be frustrating because you feel like, okay, am I wasting my time doing this? Is this time that I'm spending doing this thing, specifically YouTube in this case for me, is that time I could be using to do something else? And, you know, failing as a writer, you know, that fear of failing as a writer, it's the question of, you know, I've been doing this since I was 11 years old. There is that feeling of, okay, at what point do you feel like all of that work from 11 to 28 was a waste of time? And that's scary. But on the flip side of that, and kind of hilariously, there is that fear of becoming successful as well. And I think that's what stops a lot of people from doing things, because you feel like, okay, if I'm successful, now I have to go outside of my comfort zone. I have to now do everything that I said I was going to do. And it's scary. And, you know, it was funny because I'm filming this video on my couch. I've got my pillows right here. I've got my blanket at my feet. And I kind of wanted to do this snuggling with Cissa style, because I wanted to make a point about the comfort zone thing specifically. Because for me, you know, I was thinking about this, and I wrote this in my journal of notes, and I said, your comfort zone, sorry, there's like a string, it's distracting me. Your comfort zone is very much like your bed, right? You've got your blankets, you've got your pillows, you've got your very comfortable bed, you're cozy, you're wrapped up at night, and when you wake up in the morning, I think most of us kind of don't want to get out of bed because it's comfortable, it's cozy. And I think to an extent there's like something to do with, like, you know, being in the womb and feeling safe and secure, and, you know, then you have to come out of that and deal with, you know, the reality of the world, which sometimes is shitty and scary. And so I think that that's why there is that sort of comfort zone. And it doesn't have to be your bed. That's sort of more of a metaphorical thing. But it's like the idea of, you know, what is your comfort zone? What makes you feel safe and secure? What makes you feel as though you're going to be okay, right? And I think a lot of times, like I said, in order to grow, if that is something you want, which I think it's something most people want, in order to truly be happy, I think as well, you have to be able to go outside of your comfort zone. And that becomes scary because it's what you know. And when you know something and it's safe and it's warm, you feel like, what if something goes wrong? Again, it goes back to the same, like, what if I fail? What if I go outside of my comfort zone and I fail? But failure, unfortunately, is one of those things that you have to sort of determine whether or not that's even real for you. And one of the things I realized is when in 2011, I felt like I was, ready, and I self-published one of my books, and it didn't do as well as I felt that it should. And so I pulled it out of fear, as one does. And what I realized looking back on that, because that felt like a failure, is that was something very, very brave for someone who was 19 to do. I know we think about, 18, 19, and you think, oh, that's just, you're technically an adult. And looking, now as a 28-year-old, 19 feels extremely young. But at the time, you feel like, I can do whatever the fuck I want. I'm great. I can do this. Like, you may have fears, but it's not the same fears. For me, that fear might have been there, but it was just beneath the surface, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how I was brave enough to do it at the time, but I was, and I'm sure that fear was there. And, the fear that I had happened, it was not successful in the sense that it didn't, make me money. It wasn't what I wanted, but ultimately I also didn't like the book that I put out. And so, like, that's its own type of failure personally. If you don't like what you're creating, that is the worst type of failure. Because at least if you like what you create, then, even if it doesn't do well with other people, if you've created something that you love, that's big. Because not a lot of people can say that necessarily. And, one of the things I was thinking about is, like, if you become successful off of something that you hate, you're going to grow to resent it. And you're going to feel like, great, here's this thing that I'm successful for and I'm known for, and I just hate it for whatever reason. That's not a great way to live life either. So it's like, maybe something you believe in won't be as successful as you think it should be. But if you love it and you believe in it, you're going to be happy that you created it, or you should be happy that you created it. And so that's, its own thing. And again, all of this goes back to, it's interesting how much, it's interesting how much a fear of failure and a fear of success kind of go hand in hand. Because ultimately, I think the biggest fear of success is that once I reach that point, it could all go away at any moment. And it's interesting because I've seen so many YouTubers who are huge and who still have that fear of, at any moment, this could all go away. All of these people who love me, and I mean, I'm talking like 20 million views YouTuber, or 20 million subscribers YouTubers, who feel like at any moment this could all go away and people could end up hating me, and all of the success that I feel like I have created for myself could go away. And that is a scary thought. But then you have to realize that you have no control over that. And I think that's something that's always been a struggle for me, because I consider myself a, control freak. I like to be in control of things, or I like to feel like I'm in control of things. But at the end of the day, nobody's in control of anything. I mean, you can let me see if this helps. Okay. You can tell yourself you're in control of things and that you have control over, XYZ in your life. But at the end of the day, you don't. You can't control what happens. You can control your reaction to it, but you can't control the actual thing. And that's scary, because it feels like, well, if I don't have control, who does? And that's kind of a scary thought, but it's also, I personally feel like, in a certain sense, there's something liberating about being able to give up control, because you feel like, well, maybe part of my anxiety is, I'm trying so hard to keep this semblance of control and fight for the semblance of control because I'm afraid that if I don't have that, something bad's going to happen. But something bad can always happen. But if you don't think about the great things that can happen too, you're always going to be, in that place of wondering, like, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? What if something amazing happens? You always think about going outside of your comfort zone and how scary that can be, and like what bad thing could happen to you. But what if something great happens to you? For better or for worse, listen, my first and only relationship may not have ended on the greatest note, but I know for a fact that going outside of my comfort zone allowed me to have that experience at all. And I'm grateful that I had the experience, even if it didn't end well, and even if it, had moments in between where it was like, whatever. I'm grateful that I had the experience, and I'm grateful that I went outside of my comfort zone and did what I had to do. I was terrified to go on that first date because I didn't know what to expect. It was completely out of my comfort zone. It was the first time I was ever going out with someone. It was the first time I had ever met someone online that I was meeting in person. It was the first time for a lot of things. And that was so scary. But I did it. And I'm so glad and proud of myself that I did it. And I think ultimately, some people could say, well, the relationship was a failure because you're no longer together, and that, is whatever. But it was successful in the sense that I did something that I hadn't done before. I went outside of my comfort zone. I pushed myself to do something that was terrifying. And I had an experience that ultimately I grew from. And I am a better person because of, no matter how it was at the time, no matter how I felt about it, I am stronger and a better person for the experience. Point blank. So for me, I know that going outside of my comfort zone, no matter how scary, is ultimately for the greater, oh God, I can't believe I just said that sentence. It's for my betterment. I'm not going to say greater good because we all know how I feel about that, but it is for my betterment. And I think for all of us, it's for our betterment. I think there's that fear of, being alone. And for a long time, as a writer, being alone is kind of something we enjoy. But there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. And I think that's something that's been hard for me to deal with, because sometimes I realize that I'm more lonely than I feel like I should be. And I don't know why. There's no reason for me to be lonely. I have so many people around me. And I think that's the thing that I need to remind myself is I have people around me. I have people that love me. I have people that care about me. I have so many friends and so many supporters. And, even you guys, yeah, maybe there's not what I think is a lot of subscribers on here, but you guys really seem to care, and I appreciate that. And I know that all of my subscribers on Tumblr care, and I know that, my friends care and my family care. So, I'm not by any means alone. But sometimes there's that fear of, I don't want to end up alone. I don't want to, I don't want something to happen and for me to be, alone. I don't know. But I think that's something we all sort of fear, and you can either do your best to have people who care about you and surround yourself with them and realize that, it's going to be okay, or you can realize that, there's, again, it's not something you have control over, But if you have people around you because you make them happy, or, you make them feel important or special or cared for, and you adore them, then you're not truly going to be alone. And I think that can be difficult sometimes, But again, like I said, there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. And, I do love my alone time. I am more of an introvert. I love, hearing from you guys. I love getting comments, and, I love people's reactions to things that I create. I do. I think that's very enjoyable. But there's a double-edged sword to that. And ultimately, what that double-edged sword is either A, the fear that I'm going to eventually create something that everyone will hate and that will lose me people, or B, the fear that, I guess something, I'm trying to think, because when you talk about it, it feels sort of silly, and I guess that's kind of the point. It's sort of that fear of how long can it last? You know what I mean? Like, you're okay, let me put it this way. One of the things I realized is that you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. We all know this. There's that fear of disappointing people, right? When you create something, when you have a fan base, when you have a following, for whatever, some people, maybe a lot of people really, have a fear of, I don't want to disappoint you with what I'm doing next. And one of the things I've realized, especially with, putting out fan fiction and putting out writing, is that, and even with YouTube, I get bored really easily with things, For the most part, I don't get bored with writing. If I create a story, I love it, and I'll keep going through the end. But sometimes I'll get bored, and I'll have to, write something else and come back to it. But, especially with YouTube, I think part of the reason that I didn't make, a bunch of videos is because I got bored. Video essays are fun, but I love everything on YouTube, I love makeup. I love watching people game. I love, random shit. I love knitting. I love unboxing videos. I love, talking about shit that's going on like this. I just love lots of different stuff, so I get really kind of bored easily. And there is a part of me that's I don't want to disappoint people by not creating what they think I should create. But it's also the person you need to be most worried about disappointing is yourself. Because you have to live with you. Number one, you have to live with you. But number two, remember how to count, sis. But number two, it goes back to the whole thing that if I create something that I'm not happy with, and it's successful, and people love it, but I don't, great. Well, yeah, that's great. People love this thing that I hate. Why would nobody wants that. Nobody wants to create something that they ultimately do not love, but great, other people love it. Because then you begin to resent that thing. And, I said all this, I think, in the beginning, but it's not fun. It's not good for you. It's not what you want. You don't want to create something that ultimately you're not happy with. And it's very true, of course, that you can create something that maybe you love but isn't good. That's true too. And that is what it is. And your taste will change the older you get. God knows there's plenty of stuff that I created, a year, 2 years ago that I'm I'm not the happiest with it. And, being YouTube, I can hide it. It's not really ever gone, but, I can hide it for now. Anyway, I think for me, it's great when people like something I create. It's great when a video I make gets a lot of comments or a lot of attention or a lot of views. But at the end of the day, I want to create what I want to watch and what I want to make. I want to create things that make me happy and that are fun for me and that ultimately are, reflections of things that I like. I miss vlogging and I miss doing get ready with me's where I wasn't even going anywhere, but I was just putting on my makeup and telling you what was going on in my life and what I was up to. That was fun. I know that vlogging maybe isn't the thing on YouTube anymore, that people don't really care about people's lives. But I know that I would rather make something that I enjoy making and that makes me happy, that are entertaining to me. And hopefully you guys will enjoy them as well. But if you don't, I feel like YouTube needs to be about what I want. I know that may be problematic, and, you know, sometimes that's going to be video essays, but not everything can be a video essay. I'm sorry. They're fun. They're a little bit exhausting to make, and unfortunately, I find a lot of, you know, splicing the clips together to be a lot of work, and it ultimately kind of gets me in trouble a little bit more than I'd like, so I may or may not be doing as many of those. But also, just because, like, video essays are fun to write and to script, but I like just doing this, going off on a tangent, telling you what I'm going through, what I'm dealing with. But, like, you know, I like just being able to be honest and be real, and I think that's something that, you know, a lot of people are missing on YouTube. And, you know, this may be the most vulnerable I've ever been on this channel, and that's a little scary, but I feel like it's important, and I feel like sharing my experience and just my thoughts on things, maybe that can be helpful to people. I don't know. And if it is, even if it's just helpful to one person, then that's good. That's a good thing. I'm happy about that. But yeah. So I think that's really all I had to say. I kind of went through some of my basic points about things that I was afraid of, and that probably were very much contributing to the anxiety. You know, should I probably see a therapist? Yeah, absolutely. Do I plan to? Yeah, I think at some point. But I do think there's something to be said for writing out things that are going on and sort of just trying to express those in any way you can. And maybe this video, too, to an extent, can help with that. So, that's kind of all I've got for now. I think I'm going to leave this here. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe. I'm not going to include my normal intro/outro on this because I feel like this is more of like a serious video. Not that my videos aren't necessarily serious, but you guys know what I mean. And then, yeah, I mean, if this helped you and you want to share this with people, please do. Like, I really hope that this video can be helpful to someone, and maybe even several someones. That would be great. I would love to think that, you know, this video can be helpful to people, because sometimes, like, you just got to kind of sit down with yourself and say, how am I feeling today? It's very, very, very easy, especially as a writer, to figure out how other people are feeling. But admitting how you're feeling and dealing with that, that's a lot, because it's scary. Like, you don't want to, like, think about your own feelings and your own emotions and, like, what you're going through. Like, can I not? Can I just, like, not? Can I not have the feelings, number one? But number two, can I not delve into them? That'd be great. Anyway, yeah, again, this video just got even longer. Thank you so much for watching. If you watched to the end, thank you even more. I love you guys, and I really, really hope you have a great week, great month, great year. 2019 is coming to an end, which means 2020 is coming up, and I am so excited. I think it's going to be an even better year than this one. So thank you all so, so much. And yeah, bye.